Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. We've got updates on Osimhen, Dumfies, Richard Rios could be heading to Inter. We've got stuff on Jadon Sancho, we've got stuff on Jason Wilcox and why we won't be playing a back three in the youth team. A few other bits as well, but I think wherever you are in the world this morning, and many of us are waking up to this news, the tragic news of the passing of Liverpool footballer Diogo Jota, who has tragically died with his brother in a car crash in northern Spain. I think that at times like this, it matters not who you support. This is when football always comes together. And obviously thoughts and prayers with Liverpool Football Club. And obviously primarily with his, I mean, he only got married 5 days ago. He's died in a car with his brother. He's got 3 young kids, family, friends. It's tragic, and we are here to talk about Manchester United, and we will do that. But we're also a community that lives and breathes football. And what has happened this morning is shocking. I can't think of anything like this. I mean, we had that car crash with Antonio of West Ham a few months ago, and obviously that was shocking, and thankfully there was no loss of life in that. But you know, you think about the former Arsenal player Reyes. This is a serving Liverpool player, Premier League player of immense talent, who has tragically had his life cut short with his brother. And it is just some of us will have experienced shocking events like this in life, and it doesn't make it any easier to understand. Life is precious, life is short, and I feel every single one of you in the chat who are watching this or maybe watching it later, no matter what you're doing today, you don't know this player, but it's just shocking. It's absolutely shocking, and it took my breath away. I mean, I'd literally just got back from dropping Seb off at school. I logged on and I saw that, and I was like, oh. And you think it might be a horrible, sick joke, but you see it, and then you see more people, and you just go, nah, this is just unbelievably shocking. And yeah, it's. What can you say other than I think we're all, feeling just very numb this morning. And look, as I said, I can only imagine what his friends and family are thinking, and I can only imagine what Liverpool fans are thinking this morning on this most difficult day for football. But I think that the way the world of football has reacted to it just shows that we're all stunned and shocked and can't believe it. Really can't. So I wanted to start off with that because I think it's affecting so many people this morning, of course. But obviously we're here to talk about Manchester United, and we're here to talk about what the latest news is this morning. But I think it's very important that we started off with that. Okay, so look, a few things to pick up from in relation to yesterday. Interesting story coming about Victor Osimhen. Just want to read a few of your messages first as well. Jota news is devastating, says Patrick Lynch. Thoughts and prayers to his family and the wider football community. Rivalries transfer window mean little when things like this happen. Rest in peace, Jota and Andre Silva. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you very much to Patrick for that. We have got Ben Jacobs on the show at midday, so it probably won't be a particularly long show this morning because we've got Ben Jacobs on at midday, who's hopefully going to give us an update on absolutely everything. Obviously, what happened with Mbeumo yesterday was what many of us predicted would happen. Nothing. There was talk of third bids. There was talk of medicals this week. There was talk of a deal done last week. And ultimately, I think in relation to Mbeumo, I think it will happen. But I think we've just got to stop guessing, stop trying to be first, and realise that one of two people will release this story, and it'll be Fabrizio Romano or David Ornstein. And you might be a website, you might be a guesser, you might be a journalist, you might be on the TV, but you're guessing. Like, we don't know when Mbeumo's going to happen. We don't know whether it's going to be today, tomorrow, next week, or next month. But I'm sure it will happen at some point. And as we've just been talking about there, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really going to be something that I'm stressing about, and I wasn't particularly stressing about last night. I think it's an indication of where Manchester United are as a football club at the moment. We're struggling to compete and we're struggling to move forward. But look, the Mbeumo deal will happen when it happens, and I think that's abundantly clear. What I did want to talk about this morning, and it's not really transfer related in the sense that it is, but it isn't. It's more projection of opinion. I don't really understand. I saw this from Fabrizio Romano last night about Denzel Dumfries and about Richard Rios, and both stories involve Inter Milan, who've had a terrible end to the season. They lost the title to Napoli. They lost the Champions League final, of course, to PSG, and they did very, very badly in the Club World Cup. And yet, they are, according to Fabrizio Romano, considering Richard Rios for 25 million quid. And Denzel Dumfries has a release clause, and I must read this correctly because I don't want to misquote Fabrizio on this. Denzel Dumfries has a release clause of 25 million, and I think it's not pounds, I think it's actually euros. So let me have a quick look at this. Yeah, 25 million euro fee, mandatory to be paid in one solution, only valid until mid-July. So you'd have to pay them 21 million pounds to get Denzel Dumfries. The first instalment on Cunha is 21 million pounds. So that's how cheap Denzel Dumfries is until the middle of July. 21 million pounds for Denzel Dumfries. And it's very similar to what Beth was saying yesterday about how you can have a feeling as a fan that you can move for a player, and that doesn't mean it's going to happen. But I look around the transfer market at the moment, and obviously we're knee deep, neck deep in this Mbeumo deal, trying to get it done for what is effectively going to be 60 million pounds. But it does baffle me how there are players out there that are going to instantly improve us. And this story came in, and I'm going to get this completely wrong. This story came in last night from about Victor Osimhen, and it came in from, oh God, here we go, Corriere del Mezzogiorno, Corriere del Mezzogiorno, which is effectively, it's a Napoli local news outlet, and their credibility is meant to be pretty good. Obviously, Napoli, Osimhen. And what they're basically saying is that Napoli are keen to get Osimhen off the wage bill, but United has a burning magnetism that surrounds Manchester United, and Osimhen is attracted by that burning magnetism of playing for Manchester United. The Italian outlet also hints that the striker's wage demands could be the stumbling block for Manchester United. So, look, effectively what we've got here is we've got three players in Osimhen, Dumfries and Rios who are all actually available, and we are not doing anything on any of those players. And I think that when I look at United at the moment, I think that there are so many other clubs who have had very, very good June transfer windows and will continue to have good July transfer windows. But as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, the frustration around our transfer activity at the moment is that there are so many deals to be done. I have seen Man United in previous transfer windows where we've got money, but we don't know how to spend it because there's not a lot of options out there. You look at this summer transfer window at the moment, you've got Emi Martinez, a goalkeeper that wants to come to Man United. You've got Costa at Porto that would love to come to Man United. You've got Dumfries available for £21 million. I'm going to just say on Denzel Dumfries, you put him at right wing back, we've probably got the most perfect player for our system you can buy. All right, he might be able to do it he might only be able to do it for a couple of years, but he would be an absolute beast down that right-hand side for £21 million. Not even in the race, not even looking at it at this moment in time. You've got Richard Rios, who can play in the midfield, £25 million, 25 years of age, an absolute intensity monster who can take free kicks, score goals, create goals, defend, tackle, etc. You've got Victor Osimhen up front, who, okay, he's got wage demands, but may well be attracted to coming to Manchester United. And they're all doable deals. They're all basically doable deals. But what prevents us from doing these deals is an incompetence at the highest level to generate those funds, sell players, or be prepared for a summer transfer window that they were meant to be prepared for. And I think that is a valid point at the moment. Look, there is a couple of things that we can bring you on, Jadon Sancho, etc. But what I think many people are looking at with United at the moment is that we've got this immense amount of availability in the market. And we're so bad, you could probably give me another 10 names who are available this summer at a reasonable price. But we're not doing anything. And okay, it's great to have Cunha and it'll be great to have Mbeumo, but they're both number 10s. Like, there are players in other positions that are priority positions that we're going to need across a 9-month season. And having 2 number 10s is great, but where's the striker? Where's the goalkeeper? Where's the midfielder? We could do with a wing back as well. And there are options there that if we had that money, why would you not go and get them? And I think that's the most important thing. Steve Woodley says, rivalry aside, rest in peace, Jota, you'll never walk alone. Viking Crypto Warrior says, any transfer news this morning feels irrelevant. Sleep easy, Jota. Well, one thing we don't know, Dorian says, well, one thing we do know is that if it's done by tomorrow, it won't be over the weekend unless there's something overtime going in Brentford, says Dorian. Yeah, well, look, I think in relation to Mbeumo, pre-season starts next week. It's now the 3rd of July. It's the 4th of July tomorrow. Then it's the 5th and the 6th over the weekend. Then it's the 7th of July. And this mad rush of we're going to do stuff in July doesn't look like it's going to happen, does it? So thank you. Just if you don't want to watch the show, by everybody, because you're really upset about Jota, that's absolutely fine. Completely understand it this morning. We're 12 minutes into a show. We spent the first 5 minutes talking about it. Really, really difficult. Obviously tragic. Very, very sad. If you don't think we should be doing a show or whatever, that's up to you. We are doing the show. There is stuff to talk about. We've spoken about Jota at the start. If you don't want to be here because you know, whatever, I respect that. Everyone else respects that. Just go away and do what you need to do. But we're not stopping the show. We're going to carry on doing the show because we've started, so we'll finish. So I respect everybody who's saying, I don't feel like being here. That's fine. It's a horrible bit of news this morning. But we are doing the show, and we have got Ben Jacobs on at 12 o'clock doing that. So there we go. But it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking, of course. And it's not, doesn't feel like a normal show, but we are going to carry on and do it. God love, family, friends, teammates. Liverpool, you'll never walk alone, says J. Law Lloyd. Rivals, not enemies. Rest in peace to a legend, says CF26. Welcome to Members Club, Alonco and Domingos, by the way, as well. Want to talk to you a little bit about Jadon Sancho. Some stuff coming in this morning around Jadon Sancho as well. But look, just before we move on from that, my major point is I don't understand why Manchester United aren't looking at Denzel Dumfries for £21 million. I don't understand why we're not looking at Richard Rios for £25 million. This morning, Fabrizio is reporting that Inter are in for Richard Rios. Inter Milan are looking at Richard Rios. Like, why are we not looking at him? Dumfries is available for £21 million. Apparently, Barcelona are trying to find £21 million to get him. Why are we not looking at that deal? Why are other clubs showing more ambition than us? And Victor Osimhen has always hinted at a magnetism or whatever you want to call it with Manchester United, but we don't want to do that. And I just think at the end of the day, I understand like concerns about age. I understand about concerns about being in a different league. I understand concerns about personality. But look at what Victor Osimhen did at Galatasaray. He scored loads of goals. Put him in a Man United side. He's going to score loads of goals. He's going to push us up the league table. He might get us in the Champions League. He might be a rip-roaring success. Put Dumfries in our side and suddenly the right-hand side of the team becomes very, very, very attacking. We're a better team because of it. Put Richard Rios in the midfield and we've got a better midfield. It's like, it's always about the money, isn't it? And it's always about the debts and it's always about the owners. And I just think other football clubs look at it and go, that's going to make us better. That's going to make us better. And it's a good price. Let's do it because that's going to make us more money. Whereas United go, that will make us better. That will make us better. But we haven't got any money. We haven't sold him. So let's just stay as we are. And that's why we stay as we are or we get worse. So this is coming from Fabrizio as well. Juventus have called Manchester United and Sancho's camp again this week. So this Juventus Jadon Sancho story seems to be on the upward climb over the last few days. Fenerbahce are out of the race and never been in concrete talks. Juventus made contact to discuss conditions of the deal. More clubs have also reached out to Sancho's camp. All I'm going to say about Jadon Sancho is the sooner the better. Absolutely, the sooner the better. Get him out of this football club. But I still sit back and look at it in a sense of, I don't understand this deal at all. I don't understand it. And, you know, I think we've been doing this for so long and we discuss so much. And certainly this morning, I'm not in the mood to try and figure it out anyway. But I don't understand the Sancho deal. I don't understand how he's on 250 grand a week, reportedly. Could be more. He's got 1 year left on his deal. He rejected Chelsea, which would have got us 25 million. And yet we still are looking to maybe swap him or get a transfer fee for a player that could run his contract down and go on loan. So I don't know how it works with Sancho, but I suppose at a point, and look, we should get more out of Ben Jacobs out of this at midday. I suppose a point comes when you have to just take the positives of, we need to move Garnacho on, we need to move Anthony on, we need to move Rashford as well. Those 4 players need to be moved on. So if there's some movement on Jadon Sancho, good. Good. I'll take that. I don't really understand how the deal's going to work. I don't know whether we're going to get Luis in, on the other way or not, but it is good news. And I think on the midfielder as well, I've seen a lot of people this morning talking about the midfield, talking about midfield options, talking about who could come in. I think it's really, look, I've mentioned Richard Rios, Inter Milan are in for him now, Newcastle have been linked to him, Forest have been linked to him. Unless we sell a midfielder, which we're not going to sell Mainu, we're not going to sell Casemiro, we're definitely not going to sell Bruno, we're definitely not going to sell Agate, and would Collier be considered significant enough? If we don't sell a midfielder, we don't buy a midfielder. So I'm a little bit confused by a few stories this morning about Ederson, about Richard Rios, about Elliot Hackney, about, was it Yulmlin Sporting is available for 30 million, according to some Italian outlet, yet he's got a release clause of 80. None of these players are actually relevant unless we sell a midfielder. So we do need a midfielder, but none of them are relevant unless we actually sell a midfielder. And a lot of people have said, well, what about a swap deal for Jadon Sancho and Jota? And whilst that's very, sorry, not Jadon Sancho and Douglas Luiz. I mean, I've got Jota on the mind. I apologise for that. Jadon Sancho and Douglas Luiz. I don't think that would be a. I don't think we would do that simply because of wages and the fact that the midfield roster is overly stacked, really. So I think that would be a very, very difficult thing to do for Manchester United. I think that when you look at the way the football club's being run at the moment around trying to cut money, not signing players we need to sign, I think with the midfield as it is, it becomes very, very difficult to even swap Sancho for Douglas Luiz. It becomes very difficult because you've got Douglas Luiz, Agate, Casemiro, Mainu, Collier and Bruno. And I think the club would say it's another wage in an area where you've not lost a wage. So Godfrey says, I know he was a Liverpool player, but rest in peace, Diogo Jota. Thank you very much, Godfrey, for that lovely message. Players have no shame these days. They would have been embarrassed to wear the shirt after how Onana has performed. It's disgusting. Get out, says Walshy. Leo says, please, can we take a moment to acknowledge Jota is dead? Says Leo. Yep, sort of did it for the first 10 minutes, mate. The show starts at 10, but there's lots of people talking about it in the chat. Feel you there. Trying not to be delicate, but do you think today's sad news will have an impact on the transfer window as Liverpool are in need of a new forward now? Says Slays. I mean, that's not the time, mate. I mean, we're a United channel. It's difficult enough doing this, and you know we've spoken about it at the start of the show. I wouldn't go around saying anything like that in front of Liverpool fans at the moment. I mean, I don't think they're going to be thinking about signing strikers and stuff like that. I think it's a terrible day for football. and a horrific day for Jota's family and Liverpool Football Club. I don't think they're going to be thinking about stuff like that, pal. Bounty Hunter says, condolences to Liverpool and family. George Mitchell says, people need to get off Mark's back. Gave a great tribute at the start of the show. Don't use this sad moment to score points. George, thank you very much for the nice message, but we spoke about it at the start. If you don't want to be here, you don't need to be here. And yet, there's a lot of people here. So, I don't really want to dwell on Pratt's in the chat. Rivalry aside, rest in peace, Jota. You'll never walk alone, says Steve Woodley. Thank you very much for that. Another bit of interesting news coming in relation to... I remember Wayne Rooney talking about this, actually. It's essentially about the style of football that Manchester United play, this 3-4-3. And I am really intrigued by how this has sort of come out again. Look, I was speaking last night about that story that came out from Laurie Whitwell about United. What was the two fundamentals of that story? There was talk of £70 million that Brentford wanted, and there was talk of United had already offered what we paid for Cunha. Well, we haven't offered what we paid for Cunha because we're paying 62 million for Cunha, not 55, which is what we've offered for Mbeumo. And Brentford will take 60, not 70. So I said last night, I suspected it might be a little bit club-led, put this out, bit of client journalism, makes us look good if we get him for 60 like we've negotiated it. I'm more and more thinking that this has all come from the club. Well, it clearly has come from the club, and it's just whether you want to question what's come from the club or just put it out there. Because also from Laurie Whitwell, he said this: on the instructions of Jason Wilcox, academy teams will not be required to play with a back three system, as Wilcox wants the youth team to focus on developing high quality talent rather than imitating the first team system. So, look, that's coming in from the same journalist. Very detailed information on why we're not going to be playing a back three system in the youth team. So everything about Mbeumo and everything has clearly come from the club as well, which is exactly what many of us was predicting last night. This is what you call client journalism, where the club gives stuff to people like Laurie and James Ducker and Simon Stone and etc. And then they, as journalists, just put it out there without much scrutiny. So it's a bit of a PR piece in a sense. PR is probably the wrong word. It's a club brief. That's what it is. That's the better word. But it's interesting because I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Like, do you think that that is a good idea or a bad idea that Jason Wilcox is saying that the youth teams can keep playing with a back four because he wants to focus on developing high quality talent rather than imitating the first team system? Whereas Wayne Rooney, who's got kids in the system at Manchester United, called it out a few months ago saying, why are the youth teams not playing the same as the first team if you want a pathway to the first team? So there's conflicting story there, isn't there? Wilcox is the head of whatever, and he says he just wants to develop talented players, so he's not bothered about them playing in the same system as Amorim. But then Wayne Rooney's saying we should be playing in the same system as Amorim because it provides a better pathway for those players to come through. I actually think that I think that if I'm a youth player in the Man United team and I'm 16, 17 and I'm playing a 3-4-3 like the first team, I've got a better chance of getting the first team and hitting the ground running. I think if I've been playing 4-3, I mean, look at, my point is, Ruben Amorim came in November. Look at the results between November and the end of the season. Shocking. If we'd kept Ten Hag, they would have been better. Why? Because the players knew Ten Hag's system and they didn't know Amorim's system and they really struggled in it. So you're telling me that a talented young player is going to come into the first team, having never played that system, it's going to make his job harder. So I personally think, as Robert McCormack says, does it show complete faith in Amorim? I think if you're, look, I don't know what they do at City, I don't know what they do at Liverpool, I don't know what they do at Arsenal, but I know Van Gaal was very big about this, and I know Ajax have always been very big about this, and I think Barcelona do it as well. When you have an identity as a football club, it goes right the way through to the youth system. Because then, when you see a talented player playing 3-4-3 at under 18s, they're a talented player playing 3-4-3. So they come into the first team setup and you've just got to worry about whether they can adjust to first team football. You see a talented player in a 4-3-3, you bring them into the first team, they've got to see if they can make it, but they've also got to learn a system as well. So for me, I'm with Rooney on this. I think it's logical that, and Robert McCormack, I think it's logical that you do go and put out a side that plays a 3-4-3. That's my opinion on it. I think that you go and play a 3-4-3 from the youth system all the way through. So I don't agree with that. But I do agree with Robert McCormack. Is this actually a lack? And I think Robert's absolutely nailed it this morning, by the way. I think Wilcox not getting the youth teams to play a 3-4-3 is basically Wilcox and the board saying, we don't know whether Amorim is going to be here in a year or two. We might need to change the manager, and then we've got to change the whole system again. It's not a show of confidence in Amorim's vision for the next 5 years when the youth team are not playing the same system. And it's such a distinctive system as well. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that. As Danny says, is it because they know Amorim will get sacked? Probably they don't understand the system as well, says Keel. Well, you'd need also, I think it's a cost-saving thing as well. I don't know what Robert and everyone thinks about this. It's probably a cost-saving thing as well, because the youth coaches are probably the people they want to keep who play 4-3-3. Whereas if you want every youth team to play 3-4-3, you probably need to recruit and sack a load of coaches, which we won't want to do. Day says, have you heard about the Jota accident? Yes, mate, we have. I'll come back to that in a moment, actually. We spoke about it quite extensively at the start of the show, and a lot of people are impacted it in the live chat as well. Tragic news. Rex says, chat, would you take ter Stegen and Araujo as a package for 50 million for Man United? I don't know where we get the 50 million pounds from, Rex. I thought you were going to say swap with Rashford. We're 15th, but act like we're competing. Why, says Gandalf the Red? Because we're Manchester United. We've got to be really careful here. I don't want this community, which has been so traumatised and impacted and stunned by the news this morning. I don't want you to start getting a load of shit. So, Peter, I'm not going to read out your super chat about whether Liverpool will go for Gyökeres now. It's insensitive. I don't think you're being insensitive on purpose. I think you're probably being logical in a footballing sense. Way too raw, way too soon. I think in the future, that is something that Liverpool Football Club and football in general is going to have to think about, because obviously the world goes on. Football will be played. Liverpool will play their games next month. The world will go on, but not now. Now is not the time to start talking about that. We all have to respect the tragic loss of Jota, says Liam. Rex is talking about ter Stegen. Godfrey has also put a nice message about Jota, which we've read. Is this not part of Ineos' strategy to sell players after development? A lot more teams play more traditional formations to sell on pure profit, says Joe. Thank you very much, Joe. And what do you think is next for Liverpool? Do you think Núñez will go, or Isaac? No, I'm not doing that. Sorry. In Amorim's first interview, says Patrick Lynch, he did say that he wants players to understand the game, not just his system. Maybe he doesn't feel it is a vital aspect of youth development. Just a thought, says Patrick. No, look, I agree, Patrick. We're not talking about the difference between relegation and winning the title, whether your youth team plays a 3-4-3. But I agree with Rooney. If you want to play for Man United's first team, it's very, very difficult as a young player. It's even more difficult if you then go from the youth setup, playing a different system, into that system. It prolongs the journey to the first team. Whereas, let's just say there's a massive sickness bug at Manchester United at some point next season, and Amorim loses like 60% of his squad with food poisoning, and he goes down to the youth team and he says to the coach, I need 4 or 5 players for the weekend. And the coach says, well, these 5 are good, but they've never played your system before. That's what I'm talking about. It just means that the pathway is smoother when you know the system. And that's why a lot of clubs do it. But United deciding not to do it, it might not be that deep, but obviously it makes things quite slightly easier. Certainly. I'm going to do a video on That's Football about Jota because there was a few things that I wrote down this morning that I do want to say about that in a footballing sense beyond what is obviously a very, very tragic day. And look, I never had any intention of this show not happening because people going, don't do the show, don't do the show. And I think that you hit a certain point in life where one of the hardest lessons is, I remember when my granddad died, the world goes on. People still go to school. People still go to work. You know, someone still knocks on your door and delivers a parcel. And you don't want the world to go on because you just are shocked and stunned and devastated. So we were never not going to do a show. And I'm sure there's other news outlets and aggregators and websites and people tweeting about stuff. And you're just like, why doesn't the world stop? Because it doesn't. It just doesn't. But it's probably one of the hardest shows we've done in a very long time. I mean, I remember the day Kipster passed, and I was literally doing the show and found that out. Life's short. Life's a gift. You can't waste it. You can't waste it. And I can't think of a time. We're not measuring statistics here, but I can't think of a time in my life where a Premier League footballer in their prime has died in circumstances like that. It's a shock to football, and it turns the stomach in a human level on what it's going to do, because his brother died with him as well. 5 days ago, married, 3 young kids. It turns the stomach, the impact that has on how his friends and family have to pick up the pieces of that, process it, understand it. And they never will. They never will, because life doesn't come with instructions. Good people die young. Arseholes live till they're fucking 100. Like, there is no logic. There is no explanation. I think as humans, we always need to justify things. You can't justify it. These horrible things happen. It's happening to people who aren't professional footballers that we can identify to. There's some 21-year-old who's just died in a car crash on the other side of the world who's not a professional footballer, and it's tragic. It's horrible. But when it happens in the world of football, to a player that, I think as a player, even though he plays for Liverpool, it's like Mo Salah. I look at players that play for Liverpool and I can say good players. Also a player that sort of did it in the right way as well, didn't he? I never found him an offensive player. I think he was a talented player. I think when Liverpool bought him from Wolves, I thought, that's a good signing. Just very, very sad. Very, very sad. Very, very shocked. And I completely and utterly understand the amount of people that it's impacted in the chat. Because it's stunning news, and a lot of people will still, it's only about an hour since many of us knew about this. So, how Liverpool Football Club processed that. Look, again, we're not here to discuss things that have happened to Manchester United and Liverpool in the past, but this is another huge tragedy for Liverpool Football Club to deal with. And I think the thing that makes this even more real is that, as morbid as it sounds, and the priority has to be his wife, children, brother, family. But in a footballing sense, we're a footballing community. I think the thing that grabs you the most in a footballing sense is not stupid stuff about are they going to go for Gyökeres or what they're going to do. That's irrelevant. No one gives a shit about that, really. There's no Liverpool fan thinking what we're going to do in the transfer market. Fucking God, no. No, absolutely not. They will have to do something, but obviously that's not the process. The thought process at the moment is one of extreme sadness, loss, and the whole. And I heard it this morning, and it made me feel sick, because you feel for Liverpool Football Club, you feel for the player, obviously, and the friends and the family, and that's just normal human behaviour. But you also are exposed to the fragility of life and what we take for granted. And you think, if that can happen to a Liverpool player in their prime, imagine if that happened to a Man United player or an Arsenal player or a Man City player. It brings it home, the fragility of everything around us. And that is very, very difficult for the human brain to deal with. The fact that you can be driving somewhere and die. You know, you can say goodbye to somebody like you do every morning, and then that's the last goodbye. And that's something that we really do struggle to deal with it. And when things like this happen, it literally brings everybody together in this stark reality of how precious life is and what a gift life is, and how you just can't take it for granted. And football will always be rivalry, and football will always be this sport that we love. But when real things happen like that, we realise ultimately, as important as it is, it bears no significance to the importance of human life. And that is what we've lost this morning. A fellow member of this community we call football has passed at an incredibly young age in, shockingly sad circumstances. And in many different ways, we've all got to pick up the pieces of that and move on. And I think for Liverpool and his friends and family, that's going to be a long process, and our thoughts and prayers go out with them. And I think for us, as non-Liverpool fans and people that didn't know the player, it's still a shocking thing that sends our thoughts into all sorts of ways. So, look, I appreciate everyone this morning. I think it's important that the show goes on. In a sense, we are a community, and we've been through all sorts of stuff, haven't we? Numerous tragedies over the years, numerous difficult situations, and unfortunately, this is just another one. And I'm sure it's been useful anyway for some of you just to be part of the community, interacting with everybody, as we always will, hopefully. But look around you today. Read the comments. Look at what you're seeing. We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. Nobody gets a pass when it comes to circumstances. You just don't know. So, cherish those ones that matter to you. Try not to hate. Try not to be, somebody that spends their life being horrible and vile towards other people, because the only people that matter are the good people, and you don't know how long you've got with them either. So, yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in today. We are back at midday. We'll get back onto the football in a proper sense at midday, because we've got Ben Jacobs on. So obviously we'll update on what's going on with all the transfer stuff. But yeah, obviously a very challenging community this morning. Thank you to Bounty Hunter. I appreciate that. Back live again with you at midday. I have got a video going up on That's Football in a more footballing sense, a little bit, more of a tribute to Jota, I think, which will resonate with probably non-Liverpool fans more than Liverpool fans who are going through their own thing. But there's a few things I wrote down this morning that I just want to talk about in relation to the player himself. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. Back at midday with Ben Jacobs. Speak to you all in a bit. Take care.